Welcome, everybody, to the International College of Integrative Medicine podcast, translating science to clinical practice since 1983. I'm your host, Luke W. Russell, and right now I am joined by John Richardson.
Yes.
The General Counsel for ICIM.
That's correct.
Thank you for sitting down with me, John.
It's my pleasure, Luke.
Just thinking about, I've done a lot of work with both in the legal industry and in the medical industry, and listening to you this morning, you brought up you had some really important point about consent forms,
Right.
and so what I'd love to do is talk about that a little bit first, and then maybe we can go some different directions from there, because I know that a lot of physicians within this world don't use consent forms,
Right.
and so I'd love to hear your perspective both on like when should they be used and why are they so important?
Right. Well, I think that I agree with that. I go to I have a general practitioner I go to as part of a big hospital in Northwestern in Chicago, and they're not doing anything alternative. Mm-hmm. They're doing traditional medicine. They have the back of their back, moving this way where more and more practices are being bought out, and they have corporate backing, and they have a lot of people behind their back. Versus integrative medicine doctors are usually independent physicians, and they're doing things that are not approved sometimes by the FDA, or they're done a little bit differently. Not to say that they're wrong, but because of that, it's important to inform the patient, look, before you come in here, we're not just going to have you sign all these forms. We want to talk to you about what's on the forms. We want to make sure that you understand what the risks and benefits are of this treatment, because you're probably going to pay out of pocket. Your insurance isn't going to cover it. And even though we believe it's safe, you should be educated. Mm-hmm. And you should know what you're putting into your body and the treatment that you're going through. It's about liability, but it's also about freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. You can't have freedom of choice unless you have the knowledge to be able to make a choice, or else somebody's just making the choice for you. Yeah. And you're ignorant of what to do. Because of that, consents are key. Mm-hmm. How do you prove, that you did it? You need it in black and white. Yeah. Yeah, I think I explained this morning, it should be done on a regular basis, especially dealing with what we're talking about today, which is treating patients who, not treating cancer, but treating patients who have cancer. Because, cancer could metastasize, it can move so quickly, and the disease can spread rapidly. Yeah. And your whole health outlook can kind of turn on a dime. Mm-hmm. So I think I was saying this morning that it's important to have them re-up and re-sign every quarter. That way, if things have progressed for the worse or changed as far as their health is concerned, that later on you have it in black and white. No, his health changed, but look, we went through the consents again, mm-hmm. The benefits and the risks in this particular treatment, despite the changes in his health, and he signed his name on the dotted line. And again, I it's not tongue in cheek to say that it's not just liability. It really is about freedom of choice for the patient and knowing what they're getting into. Yeah. So I think that it's for integrative medicine physicians and patients who see alternative medicine, it's key. I mean, I wouldn't go see an alternative medicine physician if they didn't have good consent forms. Mm-hmm. I just wouldn't do it. I would feel like I'm in the dark about what's going on. It's one thing to sit and listen to all these terms. They're sometimes in Latin, medical terms aren't the easiest thing to comprehend.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be able to later on sit down, have the paperwork in front of you and be able to look, okay, what did Dr. Jones say to me? Well, here it is in black and white, and and not only for the patient, but the patient's family. Because, it's always the people on the peripheral who are like, what is Uncle Benny doing? Why is he going, is he, the people that don't quite know, or aren't quite close enough that sometimes cause a problem, maybe file a complaint out of ignorance, if anything else. So, and when it comes to alternative medicine, I think it's key. It's absolutely key.
Yeah.
So, what else could we say today?
Well,
I'm not sure.
I mean, think it. What would you say? So, if an integrative, holistic physician is listening in, what's really important for their practice? Whether that comes to like what kind of insurance they do, any kinds of like logistical practices, what things can physicians do to protect themselves in the event that they end up in a legal battle down the road?
That's another thing that I said today, which is it's sometimes harder for these guys to get malpractice insurance. But there are good companies out there, and I'm not going to reference it now because I'm not going to have ICIM sponsor a corporation without talking to anybody, but there are good malpractice companies out there who will pay a private attorney of your choice if there's a medical board violation. Despite the fact that you're doing alternative treatments. Some corporations just don't want to take the risk, and I say take the risk. They don't want to take on the perceived risk because a lot of them are pretty ignorant as to what they would be insuring or not insuring. Some people freak out when you say things like chelation, even though the attack trials would prove that they were absolutely 100% chelation and the treatment was 110% safe. But I think that's good advice to familiarize yourself, if you're a physician, with your malpractice policy and see, what's covered. These complaints don't happen every day. Most of my clients, I have some repeat customers, but most of them aren't. If you're going to get jammed up, it's probably going to happen once or twice in your life. But when it does, it's expensive and it's stressful. When somebody attacks your integrity and your license, and it's your livelihood, and there's a whole panoply of emotions that can come into play. And when you can take the responsibility of having to pay for it all out of the equation, it reduces the old stress level down. So I think that would be good advice for any integrative medicine physician.
Let's talk about from a marketing standpoint, because that's what I work with all my clients with. Is I had a question for. One thing I've noticed is a lot of independent physicians don't tend to have an attorney that they could. So let's say they had a legal question, they don't have an attorney to call.
Right.
And that's.
Or it's a family attorney that some of them they might not quite have the expertise or be focused enough to answer the questions that they need.
Right. Yeah. And so, especially given my work within the legal world, I certainly encourage my clients to cover themselves. I'd love to talk, like, from a marketing standpoint. I tend to notice most doctors I interact with don't have a lot of legal disclaimer language on their website, or they some of my clients are really savvy with what they can and can't say. Others aren't as savvy.
Right.
What do you think is important? So what's the quote bare minimum that a physician needs to be thinking about if they want to make sure they're covering their tail? And maybe one of the question I should be asking before that is, what's their exposure by, if they're not making sure what they say on their website is properly stated or disclaimed?
Well, I mean, the FDA can come after you. You can be fined. You can have, and advertising violations are medical board violations. Your license can be attacked, and I get it. If you have unscrupulous people who make all kinds of claims.
Yeah.
I mean, it harkens to that day back of, I don't know, it was like the Little House on the Prairie episode when somebody tried to sell the Wilder's snake oil or something. You have to have regulation when you're educating the public. Some ground rules that I mean, first of all, if you are going to launch a website, you're paying a web designer, pay a lawyer.
Yeah.
Have them look at what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. There's regulations, and then there's the prosecution du jour, if you will. Mm-hmm. What a medical board it's not written down, but they don't like it. And you're not going to get that kind of insight unless you're speaking to a former board member or a lawyer who's before medical boards and licensing boards on a consistent basis. But some rules of thumb I like are keep it broad. Don't make promises. Mm-hmm. Don't guarantee anything. Mm-hmm. I love the words like may.
Yep.
May is a wonderful word. Also, I think that a lot of patients who come to alternative medicine or integrative medicine physicians are seeking out alternative treatments.
Yeah.
So you don't, and I don't have a marketing degree, but to me, it doesn't seem like there's a real need to say, well, if you engage in this treatment, then you'll extend your life 10 years and you'll have beautiful blonde hair and, you'll drop 20 pounds. You don't need to make these promises, these wild infomercial type promises. Mm-hmm. That's the type of stuff that jams you up. If you are going to make a claim, I like to quote other people.
Yeah.
Quote industry.
Yep.
Quote the American Medical Association. Quote the New England Journal of Medicine. And if, then you're not talking, they are.
Yep.
Those are some rules of thumb when it comes to advertising.
Yeah. Do physicians need to worry about what's said in a patient testimonial? So if a patient goes on to Google and posts a testimonial, and does a physician need to worry? Like, let's say it's positive.
Yeah.
Does a physician need to be concerned about what somebody's saying?
Is this on an independent website, or is it on the website of the? If it's on the website of the physician, absolutely.
So
that's your content. That's your website. You own it. Okay. And it's not like you can pretend, I just didn't know it was there. Well, listen, just open it up and look at it.
Yeah.
Or hire somebody to do it.
Yeah.
And even if they're posting on other websites, it's something you have to worry about nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to keep track of all kinds of stuff. And a lot of these websites, you go on and you, I never had a patient who I treated for, trichotillomania named Bob from Ohio. Okay, so whoever wrote that is full of baloney. Well, it's hard to get them to take it off.
Yeah.
But that is something that you have to be cognizant of. And I think the best way to combat that is patient care, excellent patient care. Really connecting with your patients when they come in. Are they excited to come and see you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you treat your staff good, and they're happy, and it's a happy place, people are going to want to come.
Yeah.
And if you know your patient's brother's name, you know what kind of ice cream they like, they're not just a number, it matters.
Yeah.
It really, really matters. I always use an example, and I steal the example from a mentor of mine, Al Augustin, and I think it's the corporation Ritz-Carlton, 5-star hotels all over the world, and their policy is that if a patron approaches an employee in the hotel and says, hey, where's the bathroom, where's the restaurant, they cannot just tell them where it is. They have to physically take them there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And don't tell your patients to go 2 doors to the left. Take them to the room.
Yeah.
Show them where things are. Let them know that they matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they say, well, why would I do that? I'm highly educated, and what I really care about is their health. Well, it matters. You're trying to convince them to listen to you. Part of that is trust and good patient communication.
We'll be back with more from attorney John Richardson. But first, let's listen in as Wendy Chappell, our executive director, shares a few thoughts.
Hi, thanks, Luke. The International College of Integrative Medicine is a community of dedicated physicians who advance innovative therapies in integrative medicine by conducting educational conferences, supporting research, and cooperating with other scientific organizations while always promoting the highest standards of practice. That is the mission statement that is going to greet you when you go to our website, www.icimed.com. But there's more. Our founders wrote in our bylaws that they wanted to establish an organization composed of qualified physicians and other qualified healthcare providers who are engaged in the practice of medicine or medical research in emerging, standard, alternative, complementary, and innovative fields of integrative medicine and preventative medicine. They basically were looking for people on every corner of the spectrum to find the research and the practice that worked to help their patients. And we still do that today at every conference, at every conversation, at every discussion that we have about standard of practice. We are trying to find the very best treatments for our patients. Join us at integrativemedicineconference.com and come get to know us at our next meeting.
Now, back to my interview with John Richardson.
Could you give us a brief pitch on, I want a blatant pitch just to spell it out, because for the physicians that are still listening and thinking, I hate lawyers. That's
I don't like them either. When I first got to law school, I thought all the rumors are true. Most of these guys are jerks. I don't know.
Yeah, but so for the physician that, I wish I could remember the exact quote, but I had a doctor tell me, they're basically blood-sucking parasites, and he didn't want to hire a lawyer, and so while it's one to have an opinion about it, I think it's there is a lot of I have multiple clients that have had to deal with a medical board wanting to try to control them or different things, and that's very real. And so give us a quick pitch on why they should call up and whether it's you or someone else. I mean, obviously, for the ICIM members, they can call
Right.
you and ask questions
For free.
right? And that's a really big deal. It'd be
Right.
because they could at least find out, like, oh, do they need to actually go deeper?
Yes.
And
if they don't, I'll tell them no.
yeah,
I got enough business. I don't need to,
you're not a
and then the nice
blood-sucking
thing
parasite.
No. The nice thing about ICIM, too, is that if you've got a problem, you can call up ICIM, and they can assign to physicians who have been around the block and probably
Yep.
done what you've done and been in the situation that you have, and me.
Yeah.
And when we can do a little brain trust, sit down. People don't do it because they get embarrassed.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to do criminal defense. You're not going to make me think disparaging thoughts of you, for ordering your medication wrong or having a dispute in your office with your staff, or, it's better to ask. It's always better.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it is offensive minded.
Mm-hmm.
Then you don't have to have defense. If you have a really good offense, if you got really good consent forms, you don't have to worry about getting hosed. Or
Yeah.
if there is a complaint, it's not going to go that far. The patient knew what he was doing. We told him,
Yeah.
The consent forms are going to track if there are alternative medicine statutes in your state. They're going to track the language of that statute, and you use their language of the board against them. I mean, it's simple. Listen. If I have a legal problem, I don't do that myself.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln said, "Someone who represents himself as a fool for a client." That's true, because. And it's the same reason why you don't represent as a lawyer or even as a physician. You're not going to do open heart surgery on your mother,
Yeah.
because when it comes to your license and your practice, and if you're trying to do it yourself, you're just not going to see things because there's an emotional component to it. Mm-hmm. And because of this organization, because of the fact that we're here and we're here for free and we're going to help you out, and it's a great brother and sisterhood here, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first person to tell you that I think that our justice system in the United States is probably the best in the world, but it is imperfect.
Yeah.
And there are times where I hate it.
Yeah.
And it's unfair, and I don't take umbrage with any physician that would say so. But you still have to deal with it. It's reality.
Yeah.
So why not do it before you have a problem? Ask the questions that even you're embarrassed to ask. Mm-hmm. God, I should have known that. Not everybody knows everything.
Yeah.
And do things the right way, so you don't have to spend ridiculous legal fees. So yeah, I get it. Every time I come to these things, I'm the only lawyer, and there's always 1,000 lawyer jokes. I mean, I laugh with them, and I get it. I get it. But it's important to protect yourself. You need somebody who knows the rules. You need not only somebody who knows the rules, but understands whoever's making the decision about your future, your life, your license, your livelihood, how you feed your family. Whoever that person is, I want to know who that person is, how they think, what they care about, what kind of language they use. Medical board members, whether you're in New York or the great state of Texas, kind of fit the same mold in a certain sense. And it's all administrative law. There's a certain language to it. There's a certain mindset and a mental disposition that goes along with it. And sometimes it's black and white and elementary. Well, of course they think that way. And sometimes not so much. It's important to have somebody who has insight. whether it's a lawyer or somebody who's been through the mill before as a physician. It's important to learn from other people's mistakes who have gone before you.
Yeah.
It can't hurt to educate yourself more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and have more people on your side.
Yeah.
So that's my stump speech about, lawyers.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent. So if someone says, okay, I feel like I want to figure out my legal exposure, what do they do next?
Legal exposure.
Well, whether it's legal exposure, or do they just say, you know what, I've not had a lawyer involved in helping me in whether it's my language or consent forms or anything. Like, what's the first step for a physician who says, oh, I think maybe I should talk to a lawyer?
If you're having that feeling, call me. Call a lawyer. For ICIM members, calling you or calling me is the only investment is your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And if it's ridiculous, I haven't had one that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've never had a physician call me and be like, you know what, I'm concerned about this. And I thought, wow, you must be a schizophrenic. Like, why are you so paranoid? No. It's always well-placed concern. And maybe they need a lawyer right then and there. Maybe they don't. But it's always good to have knowledge and to do things correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first step is the initial consultation to say, how big is this problem?
Yep.
Is this a problem? If I do nothing, what's going to happen? Do I need to take action? You can try to discern that on your own, or you can call individuals who have experience and do this every day.
Yeah. So number one takeaway you want doctors to think about when it comes to the legal aspect of their business?
Doctors in general or integrative medicine?
Integrative medicine.
The number one thing I would take away.
So somebody's been listening. They've shared a lot of ideas. What's I want to make sure people get this one thought.
That's tough. That's tough. Well, there's so many competing ones, and it may sound touchy-feely, and probably is, but it's important. I would say the most important thing is patient care. Do no harm, care about people, and it's slowed down a little bit, and it's probably for integrative medicine doctors a lot easier to do than a lot of other people, because these are really smart individuals. Okay, and people that can look at things from a completely different angle and come up with solutions that nobody else can.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it for money. When you're doing something new and unique, and even when it works, if your interests are contrary to massive corporate America, you're not going to make the kind of money if you are big pharma. So I don't think it's a stretch, but I think that's probably the most important thing I can stress. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone. Go back to your roots. To have excellent charts. Take wonderful notes. And have great consent forms. If you're documenting everything, if it's not written down, then it didn't happen in the eyes of the medical board. Mm-hmm. No matter how honest or genuine, you might say. If it's not written down, you'll be hard pressed to be able to try to convince somebody who's adverse to your position that it happened.
Yeah.
So those would be my words of advice.
Awesome. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
John. I appreciate
Okay,
your
look.
time.
All right, thank you.